Yoko pressed her lips to mine and whispered, "Luch, please close your eyes." I was Dark Schneider sealed inside Luch's body, and that kiss was not romance. It was a release spell, sworn in the name of an Amata, the goddess of beauty. Then the seal began to break. The spell detonated through me, and the priests finally understood why Yoko had made me close my eyes before she kissed Luch. "Wua." One of them cried as my body twisted beneath the light. Yoko said nothing. She just watched the seal end. When the light cleared, I rose in my true form, and the room filled with enough force to make the priests recoil before I had even moved against them. "MWA Aza Muahaha." I laughed. The body they had trapped was gone. Dark Schneider was back. Yoko stared at me while the high priest erupted into celebration, convinced the monster he had sealed had somehow become his weapon. "Dark Schneider, he's alive," he shouted. I gave him one answer. "Screw you." Freedom had returned my body, but it had not made me anyone's servant. The story of my release had only begun, with Yoko caught between the danger behind me and the violence gathering around us. I had been sealed away, not softened. Anyone treating that return like a rescue had badly misunderstood what Dark Schneider was. I grinned as Yoko's spell finally tore open my seal. "Yoko has freed me from the seal." The priests offered me anything they owned, desperate to turn my return into their miracle, but I had survived their prison too long to mistake begging for loyalty. Their bargain became noise the moment I opened my mouth. "I want to become the ruler of the world," I announced, because freedom without ambition would have been a waste of a resurrection. Then I looked straight at the high priest. "And I want your head." The high priest tried to stop me, and Yoko begged. "Luch, no, please stop." That name belonged to the boy who had carried my prison, but rage had already put me beyond anyone's plea. "You can't stop me, I'll kill him." I fired guns en row, and the blast ripped across the hall before anyone could answer me. I was Dark Schneider, newly freed after 15 years sealed inside a weak body, and taking back the world was my first order of business. Power returned fast, trust did not. 15 years ago, you conquered the world before I even woke up. I snarled. "I've been waiting for this." The ministers warned me that monsters had swallowed the city and were closing on the castle, but their panic barely registered. "I'm taking it all back," I shouted. "Ha ha ha ha." One minister demanded responsibility, as if that word could restrain me. 15 years had passed, and the world looked exactly as unimpressive as I remembered. Luch stared at me, shaken. "How can this be?" Then the answer rose over the city in the form of a many-headed monster, its jaws snapping through rooftops while people fled below. The threat had jumped from one arrogant sorcerer in a hall to an entire city under siege. That was no longer a warning, it was proof. The monster crashed through the streets, and the crowd finally understood what my return meant. Even my hydra quivers from the aura. Someone cried as fear spread toward the castle. A minister called my power incredible. He was right. "Look what we have," I heard another man shout. "Get out of my way or I'll be ticked." Luch planted herself in my path while the ministers begged for someone to stop me. "If you do that, I'll never forgive you." She said it was brave, which made it inconvenient. Then Yoko called out, "Hold it, Luch." The room had run out of people willing to watch quietly, and that made the next argument far more dangerous than the monster outside. Yoko marched up and demanded to know what I was trying to do. Luch cut in first. "This time there's no saving him." The accusation missed the point. "Your father was just one victim in my first step toward world domination." I told Yoko. Her anger stopped being fear then. It became personal. Yoko slapped me hard enough to silence the room. "Don't you dare talk to me like that." Grief had given her nerve, and the ministers behind her were crying too. For once, I did not laugh. "I'm sorry," I said. The apology was real enough to sting, but it could not undo a father or stop what I had already started. Yoko's tears did not change my target. "Oh, shut up. I'm going to get my revenge against the high priest." Whatever pain sat between us had to wait, because that grudge still had teeth. "I absolutely will not let him live." I roared, then burst through the ceiling as stone and dust rained through the hall. I thrust both hands forward and cast. Slayered Bamal, Thunder of Darkness, Balvolt. As black lightning tore through the castle and every priest froze. I was Dark Schneider, freshly restored from a seal, and this was why nobody should have expected mercy from me. No, a lightning attack spell. Yoko cried, could their defense survive? Master Geo, the armored priest I had come to punish, charged through the falling lightning and raised both hands while Yoko tried to stop the collision before it became a funeral. Stop, Yoko pleaded. Die, old geezer. I shouted. Geo met me with Striba, then called holy spirits to become his shield. Balvolt crashed into Master Geo hard enough to fling him across the courtyard, but he hit the ground, still forcing his hands forward, instead of admitting the spell had beaten him. Kayo, Yoko cried. I watched him brace himself again, stubborn priest. Master Geo stood inside an absolute magic barrier, a top-class defensive spell that countered magic, and I saw my lightning crawl over it without breaking through. You cannot defeat me with your black magic, he declared, but your spell will not block all types of magic. I answered. Now we had terms. Master Geo explained that strong spells needed a catalyst, then flexed and trusted the limitless endurance, holy fists of steel that made him a priest and a warrior. They should really use you for a human cannonball, I said. I've got a bad feeling again. Yoko murmured. That's enough, shut up, old-timers. I snapped. I held up my blood beneath the royal castle of Metallicana and asked, is this not the castle with the stone golem stored in an underground chamber? I had used that weapon in a war 15 years earlier. What? Master Geo blurted, blood splashed. Why would you use that? He demanded. I cut my palm over a magic circle and ordered it. Open a mystic portal to the golem, because blood gave my command a path to what waited below. You're too late, I told them. I am your master, answer my call. The priest screamed. No, stop him. The magic circle answered, and I woke the golem as something enormous began moving inside the underground chamber while the guards scrambled for the key. Golem, awaken, I called. It's coming, I'll crush everything with its evil power. I shouted, then its eye opened. My stone golem burst through Metallicana's floor, scattering stone as I forced it into the light. I was Dark Schneider, and I had turned the royal castle's buried weapon against the high priest. It was built to crush armies. Could he survive his own castle turning against him? I saw the battle freeze in my memory like a painted nightmare, a white-haired warrior, a red-haired woman clinging to her, and bodies already thrown across the ground below. The bastard crest hung above them. No victory had come yet. Above the chaos, I mocked them while the stone golem bore down on the castle. 100,000 tons, ha ha ha. I laughed. So what do you say now? You can't hurt my golem. Even the people below understood the problem. The Hydra had already been bad enough. This thing weighed more than all their courage put together. Master Geo, the armored priest defending Metallicana, recoiled as my stone golem started walking. The statue is moving, he shouted. That warning arrived late. One step shattered the ground, and its roar shook loose more stone from the castle around us. The threat had stopped being hidden. The stone golem stood fully awake now, its armor plated in horns and spikes, while Master Geo ran through the wreckage beside it. I had given the castle a monster that did not need magic to terrify people. Its size did the work. I watched the stone golem stomp through Metallicana while panic raced ahead of it. A golem obeyed its master alone, and stone was the strongest kind. That mattered because every corridor it entered became a weapon aimed at the people trying to flee. The king needed warning, fast. Stone and dust tore through the castle as the frightened guards scattered. I only had to look down and laugh. Ha ha ha, how's that, high priest? The stone golem's bulk filled the ruin behind me. He had wanted to contain me. Instead, I had made his prison move. The stone golem kept advancing while the castle begged for help. Luch, the young woman who had broken my seal, tried to stop me, but fear locked her legs in place. I have to stop him, but I can't move my legs. She finally saw what I had become. I liked killing, that was the worst part. I unleashed venom, and the stone golem burst apart beneath a writhing mass that swallowed its victim whole. Venom. I was Dark Schneider, newly restored, and already using Metallicana's own weapon against everyone beneath it. A castle-killing construct was bad enough. The real question was whether Yoko could make me stop. The stone golem still thrashed through the ruin, but Luch held the moment in place and warned. Now it's your turn. Yoko saw more than a monster fight. She saw someone she cared about caught inside it, then stepped forward with one hand raised. Please, that's enough for now. Yoko came straight at Luch, desperate enough to beg. I beg you. Her voice cracked when she looked closer. You're different, you're really just this bad old magician. She was finally reading the situation correctly. That did not make her next demand any easier to hear. Give Luch back to me. Yoko demanded. Give him back to me. I let her see exactly who was answering. Who Luch loves, I loves too. The room went still when I gave her the cost of forcing the issue. But Yoko, I am Luch. If Luch dies, I die too. Dark Schneider and Luch live in the same body. I asked Yoko. You don't believe me. She tried to deny it, but her face had already betrayed her. No. I answered. Well, good. Then I drew close enough that her anger gave way to a frozen, tearful stare. The stone golem could break walls. This broke her guard. A blinding flash erased the room. When my sight returned, Yoko was shielding her eyes and the stone golem had recoiled behind her. Luch's familiar boy's body stood there again. Yoko did not hesitate. She threw herself around him and cried. Luch. For one breath, the violence stopped. Bastard stood over the aftermath in a blaze of color. I remained above the wreckage while Luch held Yoko close, and the ruined enemies around us made the outcome plain. My seal was gone. Metallicana had survived the first shock, but nobody there could pretend I was harmless anymore. Luch held Yoko close again, and Yoko breathed him in like she needed proof. He even smells like usual. Luckily, Luch is back again. Nearby, Princess Sheila recognized what she had seen. That was Dark Schneider. The king gave her only one grim answer. No doubt, my return had reached the throne. I stepped back into the open with armed men at my heels, and word of Dark Schneider's return raced straight to Metallicana. That was the real danger. I, Dark Schneider, had returned with Venom, a spell so singular that only one magician could wield it, and everyone now had to decide whether I was their shield or their disaster. Yes, only one spell has this force. The men around me remembered exactly why my return shook them. 15 years earlier, I had led 4 kingdoms through a 4-year war, conquered all 4, and then vanished from the board. They wanted to know why I protected this kingdom instead of joining them. Fair question. We will find out then, I said, already deciding what happened if they stood in my way. Gaara, the ninja master commanding the masked force, made his answer simple. He meant to wipe out anyone opposing him, friend or family included, and his ninja closed around me like numbers alone could settle it. Then alarms broke through their formation. Away, I snapped. Spies had reached them, and Gaara little execution plans suddenly had a second problem. Their blades kept coming, so I stopped entertaining the chase. A normal sword only gave me reach. Murasame, my magical sword, turned that reach into an answer for every attacker packed in front of me, which was exactly why drawing it mattered. Magical sword Murasame. I called, and the men trying to trap me finally understood they had pushed too far. Murasame opened a path through the ninja line in one sweep. That was the useful part of overwhelming power. I did not need to trade blows with a crowd when one decisive cut shattered their formation and left the survivors scrambling through the debris. Dust and broken stone filled the air. I steadied the blade and said, And now? Above Metallicana, a black cloud swallowed the sun. News of it reached me as the priest stared upward and called the spectacle unnatural. The high priest saw a specific threat in that darkness. An evil god will come, these are the signs. Old records named Ansla Sax, an ancient evil said to have nearly erased civilization, and warned that its first seal had been broken. The warning turned into a crisis. The high priest believed Carlos had broken the seal in the kingdom of Judah, one of 4 kingdoms entrusted with keeping Ansla Sax contained. The other 3 seals must be protected. He shouted. A young woman only asked who Carlos was, while the priests panicked over a threat that had already reached beyond Metallicana. The high priest explained why Carlos mattered. He had fought beside Dark Schneider in the Great War as my best pupil and friend, a master of magic whose power still made the room tighten around him. But not as strong as Dark Schneider. The high priest said that distinction was not comforting. If Carlos had truly broken a seal, strength was no longer the only weapon in play. I shoved past Carlos's warning and walked straight into Metallicana's lower levels. I was Dark Schneider, a man freshly restored from a seal, and something down there was calling Carlos by name. "Abigail, Abigail, where are you?" He shouted behind me. It was a small door leading to a much bigger disaster, what was waiting below. Far below the castle, I felt a heartbeat pulse through the stone, heavy enough to make the air feel wrong. "You hear his heartbeat, Carlos?" I asked. He named Sax, the strongest of the old magic's bad gods, then laid out the prize. "Tomorrow we'll get the second seal in Metallicana." Carlos showed me the monster we were working toward, all horns and malice beneath the tower. "Only 2 more seals and we'll have all of them." He said Sax was not merely dangerous. Freeing that evil god would turn every sealed kingdom into a target. "Then our evil god will be free." Carlos savored Sax's awakening, and I watched the castle in the kingdom of Judah disappear under a violent blast. "With his awakening, the path of destruction becomes clear." He said at Metallicana, the high priest warned Yoko. "The invaders that destroyed Judah are moving towards us." Yoko recoiled. "You want Luch to become Dark Schneider again." Yoko refused before anyone could turn Luch into a sacrifice again. "No, after all that took place, Luch won't become Dark Schneider anymore." Her fear became anger. "We aren't your puppets," the high priest only answered. "Of course we'll be careful." That was a weak reassurance, because my return had already put them in danger. Yoko retreated to her room and treated her first kiss like a full-scale disaster. "Nobody cares about me. What should I do?" For a moment, the world-ending threat lost to teenage panic. Then I asked, "Yoko, do you want to play with me?" She snapped back, "Be quiet, I've got to think." Yoko called me a little dog and told me to go away. "No, you are like a little dog, go away." I chose the mature response. "I like to wash." When I offered to wash instead, Luch had enough. "Now leave." Yoko bolted down the hall, leaving me with nothing but a ridiculous argument. Outside, Luch tried to explain why I was different from Dark Schneider. "If you know who he is." She protested, but the other children only laughed. I heard Yoko defend me anyway. "Stop teasing Luch." Her final answer was simple. "He's completely different than Dark Schneider." Then the memory of that kiss returned. "I love you too." I crept through the shadows outside Luch's room and found Yoko, the frightened girl who had helped free me, asleep against her. I was Dark Schneider, sealed power wearing a child's body, and Luch could not decide which version of me she feared. "I don't know which Luch I am," she whispered. I told myself, "Here lives the daughter of the high priest." The name Bastard hung over the image in my mind as Luch reached for me amid a battlefield of wounded men and monsters. It was a brutal picture, but the important part was simpler. I had returned, and anyone close to me was about to inherit the cost. I watched Metallicana turn anxious after Carlos's plan became known. The knights drilled while the castle's gates stayed under guard because the danger was no longer buried beneath us. It was moving toward the walls. Their pride demanded resistance, but even the men holding weapons understood that monsters were coming. Yoko, the young sorcerer tied to Tianoto, stood rigid as the threat finally gained a name. "If Sax is resurrected with this evil power, we must be prepared to face death." She called it arrogant, wild, and free. Then embarrassment broke through the dread. "I have seen a naked man twice now," Yoko admitted, staring at me. The warning reached Luch's room, and the night outside Metallicana suddenly felt crowded with danger. Luch stroked Yoko's hair and said, "You can't be Luch, I'm Luch too." Yoko's sleepy answer cut deeper than panic. She believed Luch and I were the same person. That meant something had gone very wrong. Luch lay beside me and tried to force sense out of a truth neither of us wanted. "Whom did I live all those years with?" she asked. "Does this mean that Dark Schneider is Luch's true self?" I had no answer when she finally looked down at me and asked, "Who are you?" Even silence felt dangerous. Luch pulled Yoko close and chose the answer she needed to believe. "Anyways, Luch stays Luch." She said she promised I would never become Dark Schneider again, yet the open window showed the dark outside. The war would begin soon. A comforting promise was not a defense against what was already approaching. Outside, I saw the castle's fear become real. Orcs, goblins, lizardmen, and half-humans had gathered at the border, with creatures as huge as the Hydra among them. The guards knew Metallicana could not meet that force alone. Then the invaders entered the street, and surrender became their demand. I snapped toward Gara as he shattered the room and seized Luch. I was Dark Schneider, trapped inside a child's body while my old power clawed at its seal, and Gara had chosen the one hostage that could force my hand. "Hold it, Gara," I shouted. Could I stop him before Luch paid for my return? Gara heard my voice and finally understood whose body stood before him. "She's my woman. If you touch her, I'll kill ya." I told him. Luch froze at the answer she did not want, because each time she slept, my power returned, and the seal had already weakened after being broken twice. Yoko's father smashed through the wreckage looking for her, and for 1 second the rescue looked real. Then Gara drew Murasame and called his wyvern. "Father," Yoko cried. The beast's arrival changed the problem from a hostage standoff into an escape route through the sky. Gara wyvern tore free with Luch while its rider shouted, "High Priest, I'll exchange your daughter for Dark Schneider." That threat mattered because Luch was no longer just bait. She was leverage against everyone in Metallicana, and Yoko could only scream, "No, Luch." The image that stayed with me was a towering armored monster, all spikes, plated limbs, and a snarling skull-like face. No speech, no explanation, just the kind of silhouette designed to make a fortress feel suddenly inadequate. I remembered the violence around Bastard, as a white-haired warrior carried a red-haired woman above fallen monsters and armed fighters. The scene promised brute survival, not clean heroics. Everyone below was still fighting, and nobody looked like they had room for mercy. Gara escaped on the wyvern and laughed at the people trying to reach him. "See ya, High Priest," he called below. Yoko's father begged. "Yoko." While the child-shaped body I occupied watched in silence. Gara had not won a battle. He had bought distance, and distance was enough. Gara carried Yoko toward the ninja fortress of Gara on the wyvern's back. "Where are you taking me to?" she demanded. "On wyvern's wings it ain't far." Gara answered. His fortress waited beyond the cliffs, which meant Yoko was being taken somewhere built to keep enemies out. I heard the royal hall erupt. Yoko was abducted by a ninja. I was Dark Schneider, the sealed sorcerer Gara wanted as ransom, and one missing girl had put Metallicana on a knife edge. "They want Dark Schneider," the high priest shouted. "Would the kingdom dare free me?" "Where could they have taken her?" the high priest asked. "We have to search for her." Then Princess Sheila stepped forward. "I have learned a bit about magic too," she said. Luch asked where Yoko was, but the priests had only one answer. "Who else can release the seal?" No answer came easily. Master Geo asked Princess Sheila whether she was ready, and her quiet. "Yes." Made the priests panic. Luch asked, "It has to be a maiden's kiss, right?" Princess Sheila answered, "Then I can do it." The high priest snapped, "Forget it." That settled nothing. Princess Sheila refused to let custom decide whether Yoko lived. "Yoko is in trouble," she shouted while the high priest barked. "The kiss is part of the marrying ritual." The court applauded her nerve anyway. Their leader folded instantly. "Take him to his bed." A very dignified surrender. I watched Princess Sheila draw Luch close and tell her, "You have to concentrate on the spell with all your power." That was the danger. If Luch awakened fully, she could join Yoko's abductors instead of us. The adults called it necessary. Luch clung to Princess Sheila as the high priest murmured, "Be really quiet now." Master Geo insisted I would not return as the monster they feared, because Luch had influenced me. "There's a risk with opening the seal." He admitted. I knew the cost was worse than their ceremony. Princess Sheila knelt before Luch and asked, "Are you ready?" Luch lowered her eyes. The priests hid their fear behind prayer.
In the name of an Amata, goddess of beauty, free yourself of the seal.
They declared Princess Sheila kissed me. They said only Dark Schneider could stop Carlos, and the fate of every human there now rested on that ritual. The seal ruptured, energy surged through me until that smaller body could not hold it, and I laughed as my real strength forced its way back. Ha ha, Luch recoiled, clutching her chest, while the light swallowed everything. Dark Schneider was returning. I broke the seal and took my real body back. If that kind of payoff is why you're here, subscribe. I break down a new one of these every day. I stepped out in my true body, and the seal's last restraints burst away behind me. I was Dark Schneider, the monster Metallicana had chosen to unleash because Carlos and Anslisax were worse. Yoko stared up at me and whispered, Dark Schneider. The court froze. I had changed too completely for them to pretend this was safe. I had finally stepped back into my real body, and the whole rescue had stopped being a hostage crisis and started being a warning. If you enjoyed watching me break down why these power jumps actually matter, subscribe. I unpack a new one of these every day. Yoko studied me in silence, then decided I looked different every time she saw me. Fair observation. I had just been kissed awake by someone I did not know, which was not bad. Then Tio, Yoko's father, broke through the awkwardness.
Your ninja friend Gara has abducted Yoko.
I answered.
I know.
Tio came begging, sweat running down his face.
Rescue Yoko, I plead to you as a father.
The priests piled on fast, warning that Gara meant to resurrect Anslisax and that Yoko was in danger. I gave them the only honest answer.
Wells, I don't know.
Their panic was urgent, mine was not. The priests demanded.
You'll leave Yoko alone.
I turned back toward them and shut the noise down.
Quiet, without Yoko, I can do whatever I want.
Yoko did not look relieved. She looked frightened, which made sense once she asked me.
Dark Schneider, don't you love Yoko?
The room waited for an answer it was not going to like. The priests erupted, but I only shrugged.
Dunno.
Then I seized Yoko by the shoulders and made my position plain.
Shut up, sickos. With me being the ruler of the world, I can have every woman I want. Yoko, Sheila, or anybody else.
That was not a rescue plan. It was a threat with a pulse. Someone shouted.
Monster, let go of the princess.
More voices followed.
Pervert beast.
I did not even bother pretending their outrage mattered.
I don't care, not my problem.
Yoko looked straight at me, shaken and furious.
Are you serious about this?
I smiled. That answer should have worried everyone there. Yoko slapped me across the face. Good. At least she had stopped begging long enough to fight back. She glared at me and said,
You really aren't the way I thought you to be.
The sting passed quickly. My patience did not. I lowered my eyes and answered.
Bitch.
I saw one of Gara men corner Yoko and demand the secret she carried.
And now tell me how to open the seal.
His hand reached for her as the others watched. Yoko recoiled, clutching herself tight, and shouted,
No, and don't you dare touch me.
The danger had become very real. I pulled a red-haired woman close while bodies and steel crashed at my feet. I was Dark Schneider, a sorcerer dragged back into a war that had already put Yoko in enemy hands. This was worth following for one reason. Would Gara invasion force break her before I reached her? The ruined host of Shadow's 7 invasion site forced us off our horses, and the road ahead narrowed into wreckage. Luch warned Yoko.
Stay here, it's too dangerous.
Yoko refused to be left behind.
Quiet, I can't trust you, so I have to come too.
Gara had lived in the Valley of Graves for 10 years. Luch and Yoko walked straight through the shattered city while Gara armored men boxed them in. Luch kept moving.
Now let's go.
Their commander snarled that he hoped nobody was trying to trick them, but Yoko cut through the posturing.
Stop it, both of you. Is that a way to talk to a knight?
Gara cornered Yoko beside a deep stone well and tried to turn her fear into leverage.
You want to carry on like this forever?
Yoko could barely answer him.
I can't say anything shameful like this.
Gara laughed at the obvious weak spot.
Are you in love with him? You're doing this for the country or for him?
Yoko snapped at the accusation.
What a bunch of crap, surely not.
Gara did not let it go.
That was before your time, although you don't know a thing about his past.
That mattered because he was no longer threatening her body. He was reaching for the 15-year-old history that could make her doubt me. The broken fortress sat ahead under a black sky, and Gara men still had not found their ninjas.
Where are the ninjas?
Gara suddenly pretended Yoko mattered.
Maybe I was wrong. Yoko is in danger and you're making jokes.
Yoko saw through it.
Let's go, we are just wasting our time.
Yoko stopped waiting to be rescued when Gara masked fighters rushed Princess Sheila.
I have my own sword.
She drew steel and met them herself. That choice mattered because the attackers had expected a frightened hostage, not someone willing to put herself between their blades and Princess Sheila. She held her ground. I answered the ambush with a spell built for crowd control, not duels.
Lightning to thunder, Anselm.
Gara men understood the danger too late.
Magic rockets.
The blast tore through the approach and threw attackers aside. A single target could dodge a spell. An entire charge trapped in the same corridor could not. I pushed ahead through the masked line, but Yoko, the frightened girl who had helped free me, froze as a wounded figure dropped to the stones and the men closed around her. I was Dark Schneider, and their trap was simple: make her watch helplessly, then turn fear into a leash.
Stop,
Yoko cried.
I can already see something.
Luch, the young woman who had performed the sealing spell, called for me as the pressure peaked, and I answered before Gara men could finish closing their trap.
Dark Schneider.
The ground detonated beneath them.
No.
Their formation vanished inside the blast, which was precisely why magic rockets mattered. One spell broke an entire encirclement. That was the image my name carried after the smoke, Dark Schneider standing above the fallen, with Luch reaching for me while enemies crowded beneath us. The battle looked grand. It also left someone else doing the bleeding. Then the mood swerved hard. I wore a Santa coat while Luch clung to me in matching red and green, with a Christmas tree and wrapped gifts at our feet. No war, just an aggressively cheerful holiday greeting. A stark portrait followed, its title naming Bastard, and its subtitle calling the conflict the host of Shadow's counterattack. The young woman's expression stayed fixed on something beyond me. That look was not relief. I looked over the people this war had pulled together: Gara, the ninja master; Princess Sheila, the royal observer; Yoko of Tianodo; Luch; and me, Dark Schneider. Master Geo stood among them in armor, and the words beneath us put the stakes plainly. Metallicana had already been attacked, while Gara had taken Yoko to trade her for me. My magic rockets hit with enough force to split the ground, leaving Gara masked men staring into the wreckage instead of pressing toward Yoko. That was the useful part. A charge only worked while it stayed coordinated.
What's that?
Gara demanded. The scream answered before anyone could. Yoko heard the blast and asked,
That was a big explosion, but did you hit them?
I stepped from the broken stone, cloak streaming, and gave Gara no room to pretend this was still his hunt.
Here I am.
Gara laughed at the entrance, so I asked,
Is there something funny to laugh about?
I spun toward the crack of stone as the fortress gate exploded behind me, because one blast had just turned Gara ambush into a breach. I, Dark Schneider, had made their stronghold vulnerable.
What was that?
I demanded. Then the masked men pointed at the shattered entrance, and a new threat started moving through it. The report reached me fast. Someone had smashed through the main gate, and even Gara soldiers were asking whether a magician had done it. Arsh's knee, the white-haired warrior beside me, looked toward the breach.
Is it really him?
I heard her ask. I cut through their panic.
Wait, they need to be taught a lesson.
Gara chose not to meet me head-on.
Let's wait and see how they survive in the labyrinth of death,
he said, retreating with his masked force. That mattered because the fortress itself had become the weapon. Yoko spotted Razu nearby, but before anyone could settle the question, slime crashed over her and she screamed. I watched rubble settle through the corridor while Gara Force stared at the damage and wondered why no more ninjas were coming. They had missed the obvious problem. Yoko, still half hidden beside the wreckage, looked pleased with herself.
Guess they didn't notice us,
she said. Then something below the broken floor began to crack. The floor did not merely break. A bull-headed giant tore upward through the fortress wreckage, gripping a battle axe while shards of stone flew around it. This was no trap with a clever answer. It was raw force dropped into a collapsing corridor, and the way out had suddenly become a race. A minotaur emerged from the rubble, a labyrinth-dwelling giant with a bull's body and a battle axe built for clearing people out of its path. Its weakness was supposedly its lack of brains. Fine, that did not make the axe less real. The ladder was still standing, so escape became the only sensible move. The minotaur swung first, and the strike mattered because Yoko was trapped amid the falling debris.
Watch out.
Arshizny shouted. She reached Yoko before the axe could finish its path and pulled her close through the chaos. The save was clean, the landing was not. Yoko had just been grabbed by someone she did not trust. Yoko glared at Arshizny instead of the monster.
This is the second time he embraced me.
She shouted, then slapped Arshizny across the face. The timing was ridiculous, but her anger was not.
You pervert, how dare you?
Yoko snapped while the Minotaur's growl still filled the ruins. I watched the Minotaur wrench its arms upward as the chamber came apart and the knight sprinted for the ladder. I was Dark Schneider, trapped inside Gara Death Maze with a monster built to turn one mistake into a massacre. That beast was only the opening problem. Could those knights reach the ladder before its next move buried them all? I heard Bon Javana, the knight's leader, order his men up the ladder while demanding someone hold the Minotaur back. One knight snapped.
Coward, we aren't as stupid.
Then Princess Sheila called their bluff from beside me.
Isn't protecting the princess a part of being a knight?
I watched the insult land. A knight drew steel and answered.
Of course.
His squad finally charged the Minotaur, turning their fear into a delay that might buy us an exit. Princess Sheila looked on and muttered.
Wait,
I had to admit the timing was inconveniently brave. I told Princess Sheila.
Let's go, Sheila.
She hesitated, asking.
What about?
The knights were already buying our time, so I kept us moving toward the ladder.
While those idiots buy us time, we'll continue ahead.
She still resisted, predictable. I reached for Princess Sheila, and she slapped my hand away.
Never.
Fine, the Minotaur was still loose, and stubbornness did not stop an axe. I grabbed her and barked.
Pull yourself together.
She shouted.
No.
While I forced the issue. I hoisted Princess Sheila over my shoulder and headed for the ladder before the fighting below could close our escape. She protested.
Please let me down.
I answered.
Hold tight, I'm in a hurry.
Her attempt to grab the ladder made the climb awkward. Still, we were moving. I saw the ruined city stretching beneath a black sky as we climbed out. Princess Sheila stared back, and I told her.
Be fast.
My smile did not comfort her.
Soon everything can be seen, ha ha ha.
She could only whisper.
Dark Schneider plays.
I kept climbing with Princess Sheila against me while the ladder rattled under our weight. She seized the rung, and I saw her expression change as she studied me.
So he's in a hurry.
That was all she said. I did not slow down. I crouched beside Yoko as my face loomed over her, both of us caught in the same blood-red stillness. My name was Dark Schneider, and I had escaped a fortress built to bury me. This was the kind of escape where brute force opened the door, but one question remained. Could I get her out alive? That moment stayed lodged in my mind. Yoko crouched at my side while I stared ahead, and the bright gold around us looked almost gentle. It was lying. Metallicana had already turned rescue into a siege, and the deeper we went, the more every route demanded a price. For one breath, Yoko and I were frozen together beneath the weight of everything behind us. I looked calm. I was not. The exit mattered, but so did the people fighting below us, and that was the ugly part of leaving first. Behind me, the Minotaur, the bull-bodied giant with a battle axe, smashed through the knights and roared.
Modo.
One armored man drove himself back into the fight anyway, and I heard the answer cut through the chaos.
A knight doesn't give up.
That was courage. It was also a terrible matchup. I saw the Minotaur rally the armored line around him and bellow.
Continue fighting, our honor is at stake.
Nearby, Yoko clung to Luch while someone snapped.
They're hard at work, be quiet.
The defenders had stopped pretending this was a clean retreat. They were buying time with their bodies. A violent jolt threw Yoko into me as something scraped through the stonework nearby. She gasped.
Oh.
Then she tried to pull free.
Please let me down.
I had no answer yet. The floor was shaking, the walls were failing, and whatever had found us was close enough to make hiding pointless. I caught the movement at the edge of the darkness just before lightning ripped across the room.
What the?
I shouted, but the blast answered first. Yoko was still in my arms, so this was no longer about winning a fight. I had to keep the attack from reaching her. The impact blasted us through falling stone, and Yoko cried.
No, what's happening?
I held onto her through it. Then the rubble opened around a single enormous eye and a mouth full of teeth, and the thing announced itself.
The Doge Zeman.
Great, the Minotaur had not been the whole problem. I pulled Yoko clear as a one-eyed horror burst from the wreckage and forced us to the ground. I was Dark Schneider, and this ruined escape had just turned into a fight against Doge Zeman, an ancient enchanted beast built to ruin a magician's day. Its spells countered magic, so why had Ansela Sax's activation brought this thing here? The destruction around Metallicana kept spreading, while Gara held Luch in chains inside the fortress.
But you won't see our fight. Soon your magician will be here.
Gara taunted. Luch had one answer.
What will you do with me? Don't come any closer.
She was trapped, and Gara clearly wanted me watching. Luch refused to give Gara the fear he wanted, even while he kept her exposed and helpless.
If you touch me, I'll swallow my tongue.
She warned him. Gara only sneered.
You're gonna fight, but weren't you friends?
Then another swordsman drew steel and promised.
Now we'll see who's stronger.
Bad timing. Doge Zeman smashed into me before I could settle the fight, and my first real problem became obvious.
Damn, I can't break his magic barrier.
I snapped. That barrier did more than block a spell. It let the monster stand in front of a full magician and forced the fight into its own ugly range. Yoko saw my hesitation. Yoko stared at me like she could not decide whether I meant to save her or abandon her. I had a better answer than reassurance.
Lightning to thunder, die, you silly eyeball.
I threw Anselm the invocation that turned my lightning into crushing thunder. The blast filled the chamber. It should have erased Doge Zeman.
Anselm,
I called as the thunder struck Doge Zeman head-on. Then the worst result landed.
Damn, my magic failed.
Every magical missile had missed its target, as if the creature had bent the attack away before impact. Yoko looked at the smoke and asked,
What?
I had the same question. Doge Zeman answered by closing the distance and tearing into me before I could cast again.
Dark Schneider.
Yoko cried as blood ran down my face. That was the real danger of its defense. It had not merely wasted my magic. It had bought the monster one clean opening against me, and it used it. With Doge Zeman looming over me, I saw its eye flare and felt the answer settling into place.
What did this Doge Zeman do to me?
I demanded. Before I could stop her, Yoko rushed in with a spear.
Hey, wait.
I shouted. She had put herself between an enraged monster and an injured Dark Schneider. I heard Luch cry out. Dark Schneider had been restored, but Metallicana was still full of people being used as leverage against me. The sound was not a battle cry. It was the kind that told me someone had already paid for this war, and I had not reached them in time.
Luch told me, not with so much done to me.
She insisted it was to save Tia, who had served the kingdom well, but the damage had left her feeling unworthy of marriage. That was the ugly part of Gara pressure. It did not just hurt people. It taught them to blame themselves for surviving it. Yoko clung to me and demanded,
You will take responsibility for this, do you understand?
I told her I would be fine and tried to put distance between us, but she stayed glued to my back anyway.
Don't let these nice legs fall behind.
She snapped. In a fortress full of killers, that was her priority. I reached a wizard-locked door in the lower halls and put my hand against it.
Open to my place, blonde obsession.
The lock gave way, which mattered because magic wards usually announced an owner who expected trouble. I was already drained, and whatever waited beyond that door had been placed there on purpose. I explained the cost before Yoko could mistake it for bragging.
Magic takes focus, stamina, and mental strength.
I had thrown out heavy spells against Doge Zeman, so my reserves were no longer bottomless.
I'll ration what remains.
I said. Gara was still ahead, and saving power now meant I might survive the fight that actually mattered. Yoko swallowed her fear and said,
I'll do it.
Then she spotted Murasame, my magical sword, lying close enough to grab. That should have been help, Instead, the blade rose by itself.
Hey, wait, stop.
I shouted, but a sword that moved without its wielder was not a weapon anymore. It was a trap choosing when to spring.
Yoko screamed. The sword is moving on its own.
I knocked Murasame away before it could cut her, but its edge still found me.
Done,
I said, because stopping the swing was easy. The blood was not. Whoever prepared that sword had counted on me protecting Yoko first, and that tiny delay gave the trap its opening. Blood dripped from Murasame, and I understood the trick immediately.
There was a spell cast on that thing, a common enough trap.
Then the poison hit.
They even laced the blade with poison.
Yoko dropped beside me and cried.
I am so sorry, this is my fault.
Gaara had turned one protective choice into a wound I could not ignore. Murasame's poison dropped me to the floor. I was Dark Schneider, the sealed wizard Yoko had just freed, and shielding her from my enchanted sword had left the venom inside me.
Suck the poison from me,
I told her.
Tell me what to do, I'll do anything.
Yoko answered the cure was dangerous. Would she act before it finished me? Yoko hesitated, then followed my order as the poison kept eating through me.
Yes, look.
She gasped, but the remedy was already doing what my remaining magic could not. Pressure burst from my body in a violent shockwave, no subtle solution. I held still because interrupting her could leave both Yoko and me trapped with the venom. Once I could breathe again, I rose while Yoko begged.
Please don't come any closer.
She had every reason to fear me, but I demanded an answer.
Why are you trying to resurrect Sax?
The man before us treated that ancient evil as pure destruction and a tool for remaking the world. His answer carried a monster's laugh. With Sax looming over us, Yoko's fear finally made sense.
What if we could control it and save the people loyal to us?
I said, because destruction only matters when someone can aim it. Then I faced the real obstacle. Dark Schneider should have reached Metallicana's lower dungeon by now. One final defense remained. My magic was running thin. Yoko stared down at me, ashamed that the first attempt had failed.
It is my fault. I must do whatever is necessary,
she said while she forced herself past her fear and returned to the only remedy available. My poisoned body convulsed harder by the second. Time mattered. I could not save her if I died first. Yoko tried again, fighting panic while I lay weakened beneath her.
Oh,
was all I could force out as the poison finally began to leave my system. The remedy cost her more than courage, and she faltered. My body reacted at once. One more mistake could turn a rescue into a death. Yoko stayed beside me, refusing to quit, while the poison still fought inside my body.
Please don't die, please,
she begged, calling me Tianoto, Yoko's wizard. Her fear was painfully real, but so was her resolve. The danger had stopped being about my pride. I needed to survive for her. The poison finally loosened its grip, and Yoko collapsed across me, exhausted by the ordeal.
Oh, Dark Schneider,
she whispered. For a moment the danger went quiet. Then Murasame tore free and plunged down beside us, a reminder that this blade and the trap behind it were not finished with us. I pulled Yoko behind me as a horned demon rose in flame and challenged us. I was Dark Schneider, poisoned by Murasame, and keeping Yoko alive meant facing whatever had answered the blade. One cursed sword had turned magic itself into the real battlefield. Its fire could turn a spell against its caster.
So you dare disturb the dread demon of the magic sword?
Everything went black. A battered white title hovered in the emptiness, and beneath it a crude circular sigil glimmered like an old seal waiting to crack. The danger had not left. It had simply gone quiet. A fresh darkness swallowed the ruins, leaving only a monstrous face rising beneath pale lettering. I could feel the story turning toward an offering, and the empty black around it made that promise feel less like ceremony than a threat. The creature finally named itself Efreet, a demon god from the plane of fire, where elemental spirits drew their strength. It stood enormous, black-winged and wreathed in flame, with the confidence of something that knew ordinary heat was not a weapon against it. Efreet raised one hand and declared,
"Explosive wall of guns and roses."
Fire rolled toward Yoko and me while it promised,
"Burn to cinders, puny human."
The threat mattered because it was an area attack. Hiding behind my body would not save Yoko if the spell filled the ground around us. I heard Gara, the ninja master commanding the masked force, talk through magic while poison left my vision blurred and a young woman clung to me.
Clerics and wizards use magic traceable to 4 main lineages.
Gara said even in a crisis, it sounded like a lesson designed to make survival feel impossible. Gara kept explaining the system that decided whether we lived.
White magic comes from faith in a divine god,
he said while black magic drew on a pact with the dark world. Elemental magic was an alliance with earth, water, fire, and air. Then Gara tied Efreet to the plane of fire and the problem sharpened. Gara made the trap plain.
DS's most powerful flame attacks will never defeat Efreet.
Efreet laughed from the blaze and answered,
"The flame assaults will add to my energy."
I understood the stakes from that one rule. Every fire spell we threw would feed the demon, while Yoko remained inside its reach. I dragged Yoko behind me as Efreet's explosive wall of guns and roses made the floor and beams melt. I was Dark Schneider, a sealed wizard trapped with a demon god whose fire fed on flame attacks.
"You'll be burnt to ash,"
Efreet roared.
"Stay beside me. My force barrier is all that holds this inferno off you."
Could I find a way to hurt fire without feeding it? Yoko, the frightened girl I was protecting, pressed close and offered the only answer she knew.
"I've heard of a spell that can hurt a fire being. It's called cold magic."
The catch was brutal. White magic came from faith, black magic came from a pact with the dark world, and elemental magic allied itself with earth, water, fire, and air.
"I don't know that kind of magic."
Call Sue, a blonde companion standing beside us, made the worst possible joke.
"I'm just not a frigid kinda guy."
I snapped.
"Shut up, you freak. We all have our weak points."
Efreet laughed through the flames.
"You call yourself a wizard, and you don't even know cold magic."
He had found the hole in my kit and meant to burn us through it. I knew Efreet's next technique would turn him into a spinning shaft of fire and reduce the rock around us to magma.
"The pillar of flame."
I said my barrier was not big enough for 2. It was a room killer.
"You stay right here, okay?"
Then Efreet began.
"Heart of flame, nevermore, evil one exciter."
Efreet threw both arms up and invoked.
"Flaming wave, Hellion."
The attack poured down in a wall so huge it could bury every escape route at once, which was exactly why it mattered. I ran straight at him anyway.
"Here I come, you monster."
Fire could restore him, but it could not make me leave Yoko behind. The wave crashed through the chamber and swallowed everything in front of me. Yoko saw me disappear into it and cried.
"Dark Schneider."
The strike tore the ground apart beneath the blast. I kept moving. If Efreet wanted a furnace, I was going to make him share it. Smoke rolled through the broken passage while the destruction kept rumbling. Yoko stared into it, then whispered.
"Then Dark Schneider, he really did."
I had gone in after Efreet. The others could only see the wreckage and a young woman sitting nearby, proof that this mess had become stranger than a straight fight. The clash I had started inside Metallicana left crushed walls and debris across the underground chamber. Master Geo, the armored priest defending the castle, could only look at the rout and say,
"What terrifying powers of destruction."
Then the whole place started shaking again. The heat was climbing. Whatever had broken through the rubble had not finished moving. Out of Efreet's burning wreckage, I stepped forward as the demon god dropped to one knee and admitted defeat. Dark Schneider, trapped in Metallicana with Yoko, had just forced a fire god to yield. That victory came with a weapon. Could I make Efreet's own power obey me?
"I am defeated."
Efreet's enormous body twisted down into a weapon, and the masked men stared as the Sword of Flames accepted me. That was the useful part. A demon god's defeat did not leave a trophy. It left his element under my hand.
"Sword of Flames, pity I'm not a fighter."
I kept the blade anyway. Then someone tore through the wreckage with a shout, demanding Yoko back. It was Gara, the ninja master leading the masked force.
"Gara, I'm here, give me back my woman."
My grip tightened on the Sword of Flames. The whole chamber braced for his answer. Gara answered by smashing through the ruins with Yoko locked against his chest, a sword in his other hand and far too much confidence on his face. I saw Yoko alive. Good.
Good of you to finally come, DS. Been a while, what, 15 years?
He had made this personal. Yoko looked at me like she could finally breathe, even while Gara still held her.
You really came to save me, thank you.
Her voice landed harder than Efreet's flames. I raised the sword of flames between us and gave her the answer she needed.
Dark Schneider.
Gara did not rush me. He reminded me that I alone had conquered the sword of flames, then pointed out the poison still chewing through my strength after everything Efreet had forced out of me.
With the poison and all, your body and mental strength are probably at their breaking points, right?
He was betting I had nothing left. Gara went lower, sneering that I had let Yoko get hurt because I cared about her. Yoko recoiled from him, and the insult did what another spell could not. It narrowed everything down to one target.
You took Yoko's clothes off, you'd better not have looked at her.
That was enough, I screamed at Gara with every shred of patience burned away.
Even I haven't seen that yet.
The sword of flames filled my sight, and whatever Gara expected from a poisoned man was no longer on the table. With Gara Chan about to end, I drove my magic forward and called,
Become my sword and destroy my enemy.
This was why the fight mattered. My sword of mystery did not need time to overpower him. It only needed one opening. Could Gara finish his spell before my blade reached him? The darkness swallowed the battlefield for a beat, and one word hung over it all: provocation. Gara and I had stopped trading threats. From here on, every spell would be a test of who could force the other to break first. Gara counterattack smashed through my momentum and sent me crashing into the rubble. For one awful second, his masked force believed it was over.
DS.
Yoko cried as I hit the ground. Gara had won the exchange, sure. He had not won the fight. Gara saw me down and chose to make the advantage lethal.
Unleash hell's explosive venom.
The attack erupted around us with enough force to tear stone apart, while he stood there convinced I had nowhere left to go. That was the trap. I had been waiting for him to spend everything. The blast buried the ground in venom and debris, but Gara slipped clear at the last instant.
Gara, are you ready to take me seriously?
I asked. His men panicked because they knew how close it had been. A moment slower, and the explosion would have swallowed all of him. Venom had torn into my arm, and Gara did not waste the chance to gloat.
You may have managed to do this much to Dark Schneider.
I answered through the pain.
You're gonna die.
His mystic sword had dodged one killing spell, but the damage was real. Neither of us had room for another mistake. Blood kept falling from my wound, while Gara closed in with Murasame.
The Murasame blade is still the ultimate sword, even greater than the sword of flames.
The real danger was not his sword alone. I had burned through nearly all my spells, so one clean answer from Gara could end this. Yoko watched my blood loss and understood the poison had left me weak, yet I was still fighting Gara. Then her own body betrayed her.
My heart, what is this ache?
The mark on her arm surfaced as she stared into the distance, and that new pain had nothing to do with the battle around us. I threw my injured arm skyward and forced the true sword of mystery into its final form. This was the kind of spell that did not need to hit Gara directly. It turned the entire battlefield into the impact zone.
Megadeth, heaven and earth explode.
Could my body survive the recoil? Gara watched the fortress drown beneath the supersonic blast and still found time to sneer at me.
So much for the legend of your invincibility, Dark Schneider.
The attack had torn through stone and sky alike. It was not finished with me yet. The force finally took hold of me and hurled me through its black spiral. My own sword of mystery had become a storm with no safe direction. For one ugly second, I was trapped inside the price of using it. My descent carved straight through Gara Fortress, blasting masonry apart as his masked soldiers scattered below. The spell had stopped being a duel between two men. Now every wall around us was paying for it. I hit hard enough to crack the ground wide open, then pushed myself upright before the dust could settle. My arm was still wrecked, but the landing proved the blast had not broken me. Gara had spent his strongest answer just to knock me down. Gara stared as I rose, and the ground began rumbling under everyone nearby.
What? He deflected the supersonic energy blast of the true sword of mystery with one hand.
That was the problem. The blast had not beaten Dark Schneider. It had only made the battlefield shake. Gara answered the rumbling by calling on powers that should have canceled each other out. Great spirits of earth and sky, answer my call. He meant to fuse opposing elements and make the fortress itself kill me. I pointed at him. Gara, now you will taste real power. The fortress erupted around us as Gara fused power ripped through the ground and sent stone raining down. His soldiers recoiled while people at the edge clung together beneath the collapsing walls. Damn, Gara had raised the stakes again, and nobody had a clean way out. Megadeth's recoil hurled me through Gara collapsing fortress as he screamed, "Destroy, destroy." I was Dark Schneider, and winning meant nothing if the people still inside died with him. The blast had shattered his sanctuary, but could I stop the collapse before it buried everyone? Chunks of the fortress rained down, yet Yoko, the girl who had helped free me, stood untouched inside a shimmering force field with the others. A force field, she gasped. That mattered. Gara's final collapse could crush stone and soldiers, but it had failed to touch the people I needed alive. When the dust settled, I heard Gara calling from beneath the rubble. "Hey Gara, you dead yet?" I asked. He answered with complaints about the missing details, then his ruined arm began rebuilding itself. Dirty trick. The collapse had not finished him, and that regeneration meant my earlier damage was already losing value. Gara crawled out furious, then looked at me like this had become personal. "You tried to kill me," he snapped. I did not deny it. His arm had regenerated, but he had burned through the fortress just to survive, and that cost showed in every staggered step he took toward me. Then Lars, the winged creature Gara had forgotten in the wreckage, burst free with another regenerated arm. "Oh shit, Lars, I totally forgot about Lars," I shouted. Yoko finally understood the trick. He was protected by the force field just like us. My protection had reached farther than anyone expected. Gara finally saw why I was still standing. No way, we were pushed to the limit. The fortress was collapsing, and we managed another spell. He understood the old Dark Schneider would have killed him instantly. Instead, I faced him and said, "You beat me, DS, I give up." My surrender confused Gara more than any spell could have. "DS, you're so..." He began, watching Yoko walk toward me. I had gone all out trying to kill him, yet my force field had protected the people around us. That contradiction was the only reason this battlefield had room for mercy. Yoko looked at me with tears in her eyes and said, "You were really cool, okay." Gara stepped close to her instead, speaking with a softness that made the ruined fortress feel strangely quiet. "Even if you're not a virgin anymore, my love for you won't ever change." Then he held her. For once, I stayed silent. Arsh's knee had me in her grip, and that was the first warning this reunion was not going to be sentimental. I was Dark Schneider, the bastard wizard she had loved 15 years ago. "You're no father, you're a brute," she screamed. Then the jealousy landed, hard. Arsh's knee made the stakes official. "I've been ordered to execute you, and this time you're not coming back." Her anger was backed by Slayerd Bamal, a lightning invocation designed to turn one target into a battlefield problem. The thunder came down anyway. Even a harem joke could not soften that. The bolt struck Empress Ni's tent and blew the camp apart. Soldiers stared up through the smoke and asked, "Is she okay?" That was the point of a spell like this. Balvolt did not need to pick off every guard. It shattered the place everyone thought was protected. When the smoke cleared, Arsh's knee stood in the crater like the blast had been an announcement. The guards finally recognized their Empress. "I await your command, Empress Ni." She answered with the only order that mattered. "Sean Ari," someone calls Sean Ari to me. Sean Ari, the white-haired sorcerer general, knelt before Arsh's knee without hesitation. "I will do as you command, Empress Ni." She could not leave the battlefield, so she gave Sean Ari my execution order. This was no longer rage from an old lover. Arsh's knee had put a general on my trail. After the thunder, I was left with a title that sounded less like a warning than a verdict, a cry in the night. The darkness swallowed the world around me, leaving one lonely figure beneath it. No attack came. That silence carried its own threat. Arsh's knee hurled herself into the dark with the same promise. "I've been ordered to execute you. This time you're not coming back." Beside me, Lars warned that her astral journey had already started and that traps were coming. 15 years of love had curdled into something sharp. Lars kept buzzing around my feet, so I knocked the little monster aside.
Shut up, you little monster.
He had caught me slipping away from the royal entourage, which was annoyingly observant. I sent him after Gara or Yoko instead.
You're only alive because I feel sorry for the ridiculous state you're in.
I wheeled toward a scream as an enormous spider crushed through the rocks. I was Dark Schneider, and a simple rescue was about to expose magic dangerous enough to turn a monster into a message.
Someone help me,
she cried, who had sent it. Yoko scrambled clear of the spider while I took one look at the thing inside.
Ugg's a bug.
Lars, my winged companion, saw Yoko in the middle of nowhere and snapped.
Hang on, DS, what's she doing here?
I had a more urgent concern.
Only an incredibly handsome protagonist like me can do this.
The spider had Yoko cornered, so I stopped treating it like pest control.
I'll boil your blood until you fry.
Blood-fire death of Voivod mattered because it burned the creature from within, where its armor could not protect it.
Seek and destroy.
I unleashed it, the spider burst apart. Ash drifted down after the spider exploded, but a card floated out of the blast. I recognized the trick.
Some kind of charm card.
Talismanic magic, a secret art, let a wizard write ancient symbols onto paper and release a stored phenomenon later. This spider had not wandered here. It had been deployed. The charm explained the attack, and I knew its maker had serious reach.
My golem was this sort of thing.
Talismanic magic could create charms or wards from ancient names, making stored magic portable and brutally flexible.
So there's someone else who's learned the secret arts of the ancients.
Metallicana rose ahead of us. Inside Metallicana, Yoko tried to turn my arrival into a civilized visit.
Since our castle is so remote, we cannot fully entertain you, but please come in anyway.
Then my attention wandered somewhere less noble.
The child of a local lord, perhaps, so pure and fresh.
Lars cut in fast.
Don't kid a kidder, DS.
Dinner arrived with enough food to make restraint feel insulting, and I gave the spread my full attention.
Really, thanks for all this food, a great meal.
Yoko watched me empty plate after plate without flinching.
What an amazing appetite, quite voracious.
She had manners, I had hunger. Yoko caught me before I could inhale another bite.
Now chew your food really good before you eat it.
The scolding hit harder than expected, and I nearly choked. Then she asked the question I had been avoiding.
If you don't mind my asking, what brings you, Lord Schneider, to the mountains at a perilous time like this? Oh, my errand is of little import, nothing special.
I stretched beneath the covers while a visitor's problem with the black sheep in her family hung over the room. This was no ordinary rest. An enemy had gotten close enough to test Dark Schneider's guard, and I needed to know who. Lars warned me.
Something's fishy here, DS.
I brushed him off. Yoko came in quietly and moved toward my bed. Her sudden closeness was meant to lower my guard, so I let the scene breathe long enough to see the trap's outline.
Master Schneider, are you already asleep?
Yoko asked.
Nah, I'm still awake.
I answered that was all I gave away. Yoko offered a supposed castle tradition where a rescued woman owed her savior a private reward. I was not buying it. The words were too polished and the timing was worse. Lars finally yelled.
Come on, it's a trap, you idiot.
A hard jolt knocked the farce sideways. The trap stopped pretending to be harmless. Someone had used Yoko's appearance and voice to put me off balance, while the real attack relied on distraction instead of force.
Please be gentle with me.
The disguised intruder pleaded. Lars cut through it again.
Come on, it's a trap, you idiot.
The disguised intruder pressed the ruse until I could barely move, pleading that it would not hurt. That was the mechanism. A spell meant to weaken a wizard did not need a duel, only one clean opening. Lars panicked.
Va-va-voom.
I heard the performance, but I was still caught inside it. The pressure snapped and the marks across my body looked like armor. That made no sense until the disguise broke.
Marks from armor.
I demanded. The creature's true form surged up between us. Its scream hit the room before its magic did, and the ambush finally showed its teeth. I finally saw why they had bothered with the deception. Talismanic magic had reduced a wizard's magical resistance to that of a newborn, turning my usual defenses into dead weight.
You fell right into my trap, DS.
Sean Ari taunted as the monster closed around me.
So you were sent to kill me.
Sean Ari introduced herself as one of the 3 sorcerer generals, then named the hand behind the ambush.
It's one of the 4 divine kings, the Thunder Empress Arsh's-Ni.
That was the betrayal's price tag.
Who's really behind this?
I demanded. Sean Ari smiled.
My duty is done.
The ritual spider came for my head, and I realized the charm had access to far more power than I expected.
Ni, could she have that much power?
I forced out talismanic magic anyway, but the thing had already wrapped its jaws around the attack. This was no ordinary ambush. A burning skull hung in the darkness beneath a warning I could not ignore. Danger had stopped being a problem aimed at Dark Schneider alone. It had settled over Yoko too, and the image made the threat feel personal, very personal. While the ritual spider crushed its victim beneath a wall of fire, Arsh's-Ni watched with a smile that told me this had been arranged for her amusement.
Such joy this will bring Empress Ni.
She laughed, then she praised the work and treated my death like a reward already collected. Lars, the winged creature beside Yoko, spotted the impossible detail first.
DS, he's alive.
Yoko stared at the space where I should have been, while Arsh's-Ni lounged over her and mocked her panic.
So cute, you shake that virgin body of yours like a pro.
Cruelty was the point. Yoko finally understood that the charm had been planted before the trap closed.
How and when did you cast a spell?
Arsh's-Ni pressed in and answered without remorse.
Right before you slapped that card on.
She had read Yoko's fear from the start, then used it to keep her pinned and helpless. Yoko asked the question underneath all that fear.
Why didn't you kill me then? Why?
Arsh's-Ni did not need to rush, and that was the worst part.
I was curious to see what cute tricks a virgin like you was plotting.
Yoko's terror had become entertainment for the assassin holding her down. Yoko tried to make sense of the woman looming over her.
Cute me, the assassin sent to kill you.
Arsh's-Ni answered her with a cold smile.
Don't you know I'm your foe, too cute for words?
That was the reveal. Ni had stopped pretending this was a clean execution. Arsh's-Ni finally explained why even her allies feared her.
As one of the 3 sorcerer generals, wielding magic taught us by Empress Ni, I was feared even by my own allies.
Yoko lay frozen beneath her. Then a boot appeared beside them, and the room suddenly had one more problem. I had left Sean Ari defeated, and the news hit Arsh's-Ni, one of the 3 sorcerer generals, hard enough to make her demand.
What DS defeated Sean Ari?
Then she pressed.
And what of Sean? Did she die?
Sean Ari had gone into hiding after admitting she could not beat me. That failure was going to cost somebody. Arsh's-Ni's temper finally showed.
Damn it all.
She snapped, then demanded.
Did Dark Schneider seduce her? Tell me.
The joke was venom, not curiosity. Her rage flared into a crude outburst, while a tiny bonus comic beside her cheerfully begged readers to buy more books. Dark Schneider had clearly gotten under her skin. When I looked toward the ruined street, Lars, the winged creature at my side, asked,
What's wrong, DS?
Stone statues lay everywhere, and that mattered because a petrifying enemy could win without winning a fight. Lars blurted.
Our next opponent is the snake woman, Medusa.
I cut him off.
I said don't give it away.
Lars warned me.
Don't look, Dark Schneider, you'll be turned to stone.
A cloaked stranger had already called out.
Hey, you over there.
Then the figure dropped into view in black armor, which meant Medusa's threat was no rumor or statue problem anymore. It had arrived. My name, Bastard, filled the cover beside a dark-haired woman, a blonde boy, and a tiny cheering figure, with Volume 3 stamped above them. A black contents card listed the conflicts ahead under my name, Bastard, from Petrified through the Curse, with an interview with Kazushi Hajiwara promised at the end. Kai Harn, a sorcerer general under Empress Ni, made the answer plain.
You must be DS.
With a spear raised, Kai Harn announced.
I am Kai Harn, one of Empress Ni's 3 sorcerer generals.
Orcs crowded behind him. He sent them forward.
Move.
At Kai Harn's command, the orcs swarmed me from every side.
Tear him to shreds.
Kai Harn ordered. His threat sounded huge, but Lars undercut it with,
A little boy this time, eh?
That was all the warning I got before Kai Harn promised.
I will now hack you to pieces.
An orcs club crashed toward me while Lars screamed that we were about to be eaten. I was Dark Schneider, surrounded by Kai Harn's monsters, and their panic gave me one useful question.
Between me and that guy who's better looking.
I asked Lars, he froze. That answer was going to decide his afternoon. Lars tried to dodge the question, which only made his answer worse.
Now say it, who's more handsome?
I demanded. The orcs kept roaring around us, but I told him.
That guy is just your average Joe.
Lars finally snapped and called me a useless dimwit. Fair, I had classic good looks. Kai Harn cut through my vanity contest with Impellitor's fireballs. The spell mattered because it flooded the battlefield with explosions instead of gambling on one clean hit. Lars vanished beneath the blast wave, and I took the center of it myself, very dramatic, also extremely loud. When the smoke cleared, Kai Harn finally showed his face.
A victory means nothing to a warrior if it's not won head-on.
He declared. I looked at him and answered.
Give me a break.
He had come at me with an army and fireballs, then started lecturing about honor. That took confidence. I told Kai Harn there was only one person graceful, fearless, and impossibly handsome enough for that description. I said. Lars gave up on the conversation entirely. Kai Harn only replied,
I guess we'll find out who fits that description best.
At last, somebody had accepted the actual issue. Kai Harn and I rushed past the petrified humans scattered beneath us, and that ended the joke.
Did you do that?
I asked.
You'll have to wait and see.
Kai Harn answered. Hiding behind a trick was one thing. Turning people to stone made this personal. Then Kai Harn came in hard. Kai Harn unleashed mystic attack of 100 bursting slashes, a sword technique meant to fill every escape route with cuts at once. It looked lethal. Then the bodies burst apart, and I saw what he had actually built.
A mere illusion.
I said. The attack was there to make me look away. I held my hand out and told Kai Harn.
I won't kill you right away. I have many questions.
He welcomed them. Lars warned me that Kai Harn's sword art came from Gara, ancient Harriken's slashing implosion school, but Kai Harn answered with Way of the Sword. I answered with Fiery Power Blast of the Damned. Stone climbed over my body before I could tear free, and that was a problem even Dark Schneider could not laugh off. I had come looking for answers about the petrified victims. Instead, Kai Harn made me one of them.
Your clothes, body, blood, and flesh will all be turned to stone.
Could I break a spell built to outlive its victim? Kai Harn watched me harden and laughed like she had already won.
You are left to face the wind for all eternity.
That was the ugly part of her spell. It did not kill cleanly. It preserved the body as proof. Around us, more statues showed exactly what Empress Ni had been doing to anyone who opposed her. I told Kai Harn I had heard enough.
I cannot take all this crap about soldiers and women.
She claimed petrification proved I cared too much about what was between her legs, then mocked my attempt to break free. Fair insult, bad timing.
You trap me with a mere petrification spell. I'll just break it.
Kai Harn corrected me before I could force the stone apart.
The petrification spell I cast is no ordinary magic.
It came from one of Empress Ni's recovered secret arts, supposedly borrowed from a lost god. That changed the stakes. I was not fighting a spell with a simple counter. I was pinned beneath divine-grade magic. The stone had reached my chest, and I finally admitted the obvious.
I cannot undo this with any of my regular spells.
Lars asked whether I knew an ancient god who could help. There were thousands, each with different magic, and I had no time to browse Heaven's roster. Still, one name was enough to start narrowing the answer. The petrification kept spreading while Kai Harn decided I deserved no second chance.
Normally, I'd force you to live forever locked in stone.
She had turned every victim into a prisoner, but breaking a sorcerer general's bond carried a price. So she escalated from eternal captivity to execution, and the air around her hand began to burn. Kai Harn explained the penalty with a smile.
This is instant death right here, right now.
If the stone body lost even one important piece, resurrection became hopeless. That was why this mattered. Petrification had left me a chance. Her next spell would erase it. Then she raised her hand and called for the winds to scatter my soul. Kai Harn unleashed Dio's scorching heat wave straight at my petrified body.
Dio's scorching heat wave.
This was not a flashy blast for show. Heat was the perfect answer to stone because it could crack and destroy the body before any rescue spell had something left to restore. I could only grit my teeth.
Shit.
I was trapped inside a petrified body when a giant spider tore through the battlefield. I was Dark Schneider, and Kai Harn had been one spell away from breaking me beyond recovery. Then the monster hit hard enough to make everyone panic.
What the hell?
Kai Harn shouted, "Why was that spider here?" I watched the spider keep crashing through the wreckage while Kai Harn stared at it in disbelief. The thing was far too large to be a normal summon, and its weight alone turned the ruined ground into a weapon. Even with my body locked in stone, I could see this had interrupted Kai Harn's killing move. I saw Sean Ari reveal the answer as the spider lunged.
A summoned spider.
Sean Ari called, then faced Kai Harn.
Know this spell.
The attack had not appeared to impress anyone. It had arrived with a target, which made it a rescue attempt. Sean Ari had just chosen my side. I heard Kai Harn demand,
"Why did you betray the Sorcerer Generals and Empress Ni?"
Sean Ari did not deny it.
Perhaps that's true, but I also battled this man, Kai, so I know the truth.
Kai Harn insisted I had merely fooled Sean Ari. The accusation landed because she sounded frightened, not certain. I listened as Sean Ari pushed back against Kai Harn's certainty.
He's a greater man than either you or Empress Ni.
That was reckless, but Sean Ari meant every word. Kai Harn answered with an old warning about me, then snapped.
Think you mean it, Sean?
Her anger had become personal. I watched Sean Ari commit completely.
I will protect this man, even if it means betraying you.
Then Sean Ari invoked talismanic magic, a secret art that stored magical phenomena in written charms.
Ritual spider, eat her head.
The paper spell became a living attack, and Kai Harn was its only target. I saw the ritual spider tower over Kai Harn as the orcs recoiled from its charge. Kai Harn answered before it could close in.
Mystic attack of 100 bursting slashes.
Her technique was vicious because it created too many cutting angles to block at once. The spider had size, Kai Harn had coverage. I watched Sean Ari get driven down as Kai Harn's slashes tore through the ritual spider. Sean Ari finally admitted,
"She's always been too strong for me."
Kai Harn raised her sword.
"To have your heart stolen by a mere man that I cannot forgive."
This was no longer Empress Ni's command. It was jealousy with a blade. I braced beside Yoko as the cicatrice tore through the stone around us, scattering shards with every step. I was Dark Schneider, and this monster could turn a whole town into statues by touching it. That was the danger. Could I reach its master before that beak reached us? Medusa, the snake woman directing the beast, finally gave me the answer.
No wizard has enough power to petrify a whole town, one by one.
Her cicatrice had made every stone statue by itself. Yoko called the tactic cowardly, and Medusa answered,
"Using women as a shield serves you right."
Medusa ordered the cicatrice toward us.
"Turn them to stone and crush them to sand."
That command mattered because the beast did not need to overpower me. One touch ended the fight. Yoko saw the problem too.
"D.U.S. can it?"
Then the monster opened its beak. The cicatrice unleashed petrifying breath, a wide blast meant to erase both Yoko and me at once. It missed us and turned a tree to stone instead. Medusa cursed.
"That has nothing to do with high ancient magic."
She was right about one thing, her spell had failed. Medusa raised a crystal and showed me the real control method.
Just like this.
The gem fed her thoughts straight into the cicatrice, which made killing the beast less useful than breaking her focus. When it lunged again, Yoko shouted,
"Look out."
The crystal had become the target. Yoko understood the trap before I could move.
She controls that thing with her mind.
Medusa grinned through the crystal's glow.
Now my magical beast, the last step, kill them.
I had a narrow answer. Take that amplifier away, and the cicatrice would lose the voice inside its head. I ran with Yoko as the cicatrice bore down on us, but Medusa had already decided to leave.
Farewell, Dark Schneider.
She laughed. The wind gathered around her escape route, lifting dust and debris between us. She was fleeing with the crystal, which meant the beast still had its leash. The wind suddenly reversed and drove the cicatrice back through the chaos. Medusa staggered with the crystal still in her hand.
What the hell?
She snapped, then the blast hit her.
Can't be, the wind changing direction.
Her grip had slipped. For one clean second, her monster was not obeying. I watched Medusa's crystal connection snap and the cicatrice tore loose with a roar. I was Dark Schneider, trapped in stone while a petrifying monster went feral. Its leash was gone.
And no, the crystal without that.
Medusa cried.
Griak.
The cicatrice answered, could she survive it? With Medusa on the ground, I watched the cicatrice howl and attack without orders, while Kai Harn, a sorcerer general, dismissed the chaos around him.
So sure that you were going to win, you didn't even realize the wind had shifted.
He said,
silly girl.
Then Medusa saw him and screamed.
Kai.
Before the cicatrice could turn its madness on Medusa, Kai Harn fired Fiery Power Blast of the Damned, a fire spell that tore into its body and flung the beast aside. I saw the price of needing his rescue in Medusa's face. If I save your hide, you'd better be in debt to me for the rest of your life. Kai Harn saved Medusa with one blast, then made the rescue her debt. The next recap drops daily, so subscribe and let it find you. Which would you rather have, Murasama's crowd-clearing reach or the cicatrice's petrifying breath? Kai Harn had rescued Medusa just long enough to make her owe him, which was exactly the sort of debt that came back ugly later. My next recap dropped daily, so subscribing meant it would find you before the next disaster did. Which broken ability would you pick? Murasama's reach, petrifying breath, or mind control through Medusa's crystal?